Okay, this is going to be a lecture on the age of early European exploration and conquest. I'm going to, uh, I will backtrack on some of the earlier lectures that I had once I get time to do that, but for now we're going to be talking about the one that we're currently doing. I'm not sure why that says start slideshow from the current slide, but it does. Hopefully it goes away. Okay, your earlier explorations. Some of this we've covered in class, and this is, if you were absent for some reason, and this is a reminder, kind of a review. Well, actually, it wouldn't be a review if you were absent, but let's continue. I'm just rambling. Okay, early explorations. Remember, we have Islam. We have the spice trade that's already taken place. We have a new player that's coming into the play, which is Europe, which comes in a little bit later with the explorations. You have, notable, especially probably Marco Polo is probably the one most people are familiar with. 1271. Remember, we're not talking about the exploration as into the New World yet. That takes place in 1492 with Columbus's voyage. So this is the earlier explorations, and we'll talk about exactly why those do come about in a little while, especially with the reasons that they did take place. Okay, one of the key things, themes that you know for an essay, expansion becomes a state enterprise. We talked about this as well. The need for the resources and materials, and the various resources that are available, and the desire for that. And a lot of this comes about, as I was mentioning just a minute ago, they come about because of various things, but mainly due to the Crusades. And like I said, we will talk about that. Better seaworthy ships. Okay, it makes it much easier for the exploration to take place when you have better seaworthy ships. Having ships that can travel further distance, have better sails, just all around being better seaworthy, also makes the exploration easier. And that we're talking about as the sea voyages, not the land voyages. We talked about Admiral He and the Ming treasure fleet, and the concept that Admiral He, the Chinese were pretty well way advanced compared to where the Europeans were at the time. Admiral He exists, 1300s, so the 1400s, so mid 1400s, so late 1300s or mid 1400s. And remember, his ships are like really large. I mean, each ship was about 400 feet long, 160 feet wide. And that was in comparison to one of like Columbus's ship, which was only 85 feet. So that's pretty small. As you can see in the picture, looking at the comparison of the two ships. So the Chinese are actually way advanced in the shipbuilding, having ship-worthy ships that can travel longer distance and also carry larger cargo. So it's important that we understand that as well, that the Chinese are way ahead of us. And this becomes exposed because of the Crusades, and we're going to look at that. This map of the known world pre-1492, before Columbus sails. And as we discussed in class, the fact that you don't default the map makers for this because of the Americas are not included anywhere in this map. This is Africa over here. Don't ignore that's my phone. And that's because they don't know it's there. It's not that it isn't there. And we talked about the concept of discovery versus, hey, I found something, and the interpretation of the word discovery. And that will be an ongoing theme, at least through the exploration period. Okay, motives for exploration. Okay, that's what I was saying earlier. And one of the first things is the Crusades. Okay, bypassing the intermediaries to get to Asia. Instead of having to go through land and walking through the land and going through other countries and having to deal with all the different cultures that are there, people began to have charge a toll for you to go through the country or to pass through. It became extremely expensive to cross land. Not only was it a long journey, but it also became extremely expensive. So the Crusades, but the Crusades do play an important part in this, because if it had not been for the Crusades, the fact that how long it would have taken for this exploration to actually take place is somewhat, it's argumentative, it's what if history. But we do know that because of the exposure that was done during the Crusades, the exposure to different cultures, the exposure to different food, the spices, the silks, and all this other stuff. So actually the Crusades play a major role in one of the motives for the European exploration. And of course we can't deny that the Renaissance was also played a major part, due to the fact, the Renaissance, the questioning, the curiosity that it generates, and the overall increase or desire for knowledge, and learning about the different people that do exist. The Reformation, even though most people kind of have a tendency to forget about the Reformation does play a key role here, because of the refugees that were being resulted because of the Reformation taking place, people escaping religious persecution, and then also you have the missionary concept. Remember, Martin Luther does send out missionaries, beginning to preach the concept that the Catholic Church isn't the only authority, that you can actually learn the Bible yourself, read it and interpret it yourself. So the missionaries and during the Reformation play a major role as well as the motives for European exploration. Okay, without doubt, monarchs, again, seeking new sources of revenue. Remember what economic system really kicks in during this time period, the mercantilist system. So they're looking for that very first characteristics of mercantilism, which is, precious metals, the bullionism concept. And that plays and goes into the other earlier lecture that we had, and I will also be doing an audio presentation for those notes as well, so that you have them. I'm just kind of backtracking. I'm trying to get this done for all the classes, and hopefully it helps for you, especially for review, for tests that you may or that you're going to have. Okay, without doubt, majorly a motive for European exploration is the technological advances. And we're going to go over a couple of those as we did in class, and go over a little bit here. The technological advances, if they had not taken place at this time, you would not have had the exploration period would have never really kicked into full swing. And like I told you in class, one of the key things and key focuses you always need to bring out is the fact that all of these lined up, all these elements lined up. You had the Crusades, you had the Renaissance, the Reformation. All these things play a very important role in the motivation for exploration. And of course, without doubt, fame and fortune. The desire for fame and fortune was born throughout the Crusades. People seeking their fortune, seeking fame, and all that. So that all six of these play a major role as a motivation for European exploration. Maritime technologies, you have the astrolabe lab that plays a key part. Better maps that were being drawn, better map making, the sextant, and of course the marine compass. Okay, now one of the things that you want to understand is the sextant really actually kind of replaces the astrolabe, and the sextant is actually an instrument that's used to determine latitude and longitude at sea by measuring the angular distances, especially in the altitudes of the sun, the moon, and the stars. Now, it's kind of like triangulating your position on Earth. Now, remember what I told you in class also, that prior to all these coming into play, sailors did not venture far away from land. It was really important to stay close to the land, because if you didn't, you lost sight of land, you lost sight where you were at. So because of these inventions that are coming into play, especially with the compass and the sextant, major ones, and of course the maps as well, but it allows them to begin to venture further away from the land. Okay, you have the new ships, you have the new galley ships, you have slaves that were propelled oars on the ships, using slave power. You would have typically you went from 50 to 60 in a galley. You also have the development or the invention of cannons and handguns that would also help defeat your enemy. So all these play a major part, and each one of these are themes of which you need to know for and to expand upon for any essay that you have in the class. Okay, this is a picture of a carnival ship, a Portuguese navigator ship, and the wheel lock pistol. you have to also understand that, with the development of the ship, or the improvement of the shipbuilding, the ships can actually now go actually longer. They can carry more cargo. They can carry enough supplies to actually venture further away. And that also was important. Remember, you had to carry enough fresh water with you. You had to carry enough food on board for your crew for long voyages. Where before, if you stayed pretty close to shore, that wasn't a real major concern. And of course, the wheellock with the pistol becoming one of the major weapons. They're not very accurate, but they're still to some degree more effective than trying to throw a rock at somebody or shoot an arrow at somebody. Even though Native Americans could shoot arrows pretty accurately. Okay, commercial revolution that kicks off in the 1400s. This also plays a big part. Usually is considered up through 1750. The concept of standardized money. Remember we talked about prior to this, most of your dealings was done through a barter system. Now standardized money, again, that plays into the concept of the excuse me, of mercantilism. Okay, the Italian cities are the ones that actually lead the way in standardized the development of standardized money, and using silver and gold, ship that was coming from the New World, also played a major part. It also becomes a major element within international trade, and the fact of lending gold to governments and to large companies, and we'll talk about the joint stock companies as well. Okay, and voila, we're talking about joint stock companies. Okay, joint stock companies. I think somebody in class actually said this, which was really good. The fact that the joint stock companies are somewhat similar to a modern day stock market. You raise money by selling stocks or shares into your company to fund it. Everyone that contributed in or contributed money becomes part owners of the company, and the entire venture is without a doubt profit driven, and it's the profits that are made are actually divided up between your shareholders. And this becomes really important because funding large and long expeditions was extremely expensive. So you definitely want to understand the concept of leasing. I'm not going into a large, deep, long thing about joint stock companies. We do that with a lot in AP US history. We spend some time on joint stock companies. But for this class, joint stock companies, just knowing these basic principles of joint stock companies is good enough. Okay, mercantilism. Again, I know we've already covered this. This is just kind of like a rehash, and like I said, you can refer back to the lecture that I'll do for mercantilism and capitalism. I haven't done it yet. I'm kind of backtracking. But you can look at that one later on. Okay, this just is basically a review because you've already had this. You know the concepts, the characteristics, 10 major, while I cannot speak. I'm trying to hurry through this, guys. Major characteristics of mercantilism. Definitely how much gold and silver you had. Remember that determines the health of your country. And you want to take wealth from another country. Remember that positive sum game, the zero sum game. Well, Adam Smith was the positive sum game. Okay, balance of trade. We also discussed this in great detail, but gain wealth by mining gold or silver. You want to acquire colonies. Remember the captive market concept. That they have the metals or they have other materials of which you need. You gain by selling more than you buy, and we all know what that is, right, guys? Come on, please tell me you know what it is, because it is import more than you export. Very good. Actually, import more than you excuse me, that's backwards. Export more than you import. Export more than you import. In other words, you want to sell more than what you're buying, okay, without doubt. You want to achieve that favorable balance of trade. It favors you. You strengthen your own home base. You weaken your rival, okay? Same concept. Okay, how do you achieve the favorable balance of power? You gain money. Okay, you can gain it by tariffs. Remember, tariffs are a tax. You increase the value of your exports. That's pretty self-explanatory. The subsidies for manufactured goods. Okay, guys, subsidies basically are, I'm going to pay somebody. If you have a company, you need lumber. You're a manufacturer. You're going to manufacture something for our country that's going to benefit us, and especially with sailing to foreign countries and across the seas. And then I'm going to give you that lumber at a reduced price. I'm going to give you a subsidy. I'm going to cut down. I'm going to offer you additional money to actually get this manufactured goods. Your country definitely wants to become self-sufficient. Again, all this stuff we've actually talked about. Colonies, okay, home country controls the economy. Must buy from the home country or your own colony with internally if it's something that your colony is actually developing. You can buy within. All right, so all that stuff you already know. Okay, Prince Henry the Navigator, again, one of the key individuals that helps open up these floodgates of exploration. He develops a school of navigation in 1419. His big hopes that it's going to benefit Portugal majorly by acquiring gold, silver, and ivory. And all this is a lot of the gold and silver is being looked for down in the Africa area, and also the ivory, which becomes almost as valuable as the gold and the silver itself. Ivory is still, actually it's outlawed now as far as going and cutting the tusk off the elephants and everything, but it's still extremely expensive. So Prince Henry sets up the school of navigation, teaches sailors how to use the sextant, how to read the compass, how to properly navigate with the new maps, how to use take advantage of the new shipbuilding and the new types of ships and all that great stuff. So Prince Henry the Navigator is an important guy that we know. Portuguese maritime explorers can explore the west coast of Africa. You have a couple of explorers that you need to know. Bartholomew Diaz is 1487, rounds the Cape of Good Hope to India. Remember, its original name was the Cape of Storms, but of course, they didn't have a very good ring to it. It kind of scared people. So the hope that hey, there's something greater around the corner, around the bend here, so they changed it to the Cape of Good Hope. And it's really a rough area to actually sail on. Okay, Vasco da Gama, 1498, he reaches Calcutta in India and buys directly from Asia for luxuries. Remember, one of the characteristics of mercantilism is to avoid luxury items. Even though that is true, we know the luxury items are going to the nobles and especially to those that had the money. So the luxury items, that rule, avoid luxury items. It depletes from the economy. Okay, it's mainly for those that can't afford it. Okay, it's one of those rules, right? Okay, well, I just kind of just slipped through that one, so I'm not going to go back. Okay, take a look. Yeah, I'm going to go back. Okay, another explorer, important explorer. Okay, is Albuquerque. I'm sure I say his name right. Okay, arrives in Goya 1510 and Malacca, excuse me, 1511. Okay, so these guys are important. You should know that these are the Portuguese maritime empire, very key people. And remember we talked about Admiral Gehm a while ago, his voyages himself. So as we can look at this map, you can see how extensive the Chinese trade was already established. Remember, we did talk about in class also with the Japanese sea pirates, the whole concept of the pirates actually developed during this time period as well. Especially more ships, and people started grabbing things that they don't really want. Okay, in 1498, da Gama actually reaches Calcutta, China's favorite port. And now, remember, all of this actually ties into the fact that all this stuff is being sent right back into Europe. Instead of going across the land masses, it's going around the Cape of Good Hope and back to Portugal and later on Spain as well. And the concept is that this became a very, very desirable thing, of which more and more to have. And of course, just what's a faster route? We got to look for something that will quicker. And that's where our good old friend Christopher Columbus comes in. Okay, Christopher Columbus, he's betrayed throughout history. We celebrate his great achievement on October 12th of each year, Columbus Day. The reality is about Christopher Columbus is that, again, rule number one of history is interpretive. There are people that argue that Christopher Columbus should not be celebrated for the atrocities that he brings to the New World. And there's all those that argue that Christopher Columbus does not intentionally do harm. There's enough documentation, I think, to kind of counter the last argument, without a doubt, as with some of the orders that he gave. But I'll leave that one up to you. I'm not going into a whole lot about Christopher Columbus. In this class, we do kind of talk to him about a little bit more in my A-Push class, but let's just put it this way: Christopher Columbus, he does complete 4 voyages. Wow, I don't want to really get into a big controversy about Christopher Columbus, so I'm just going to kind of leave it at the fact that throughout his time, he leaves a couple of men. There's some really nasty things that take place with Christopher Columbus. And like I said, I really kind of go more into him in my A-Push class, and for various reasons, for documentational stuff. And I may actually do that with your class later on. But the fact is, right now, just know that he did the 4 voyages. He quote unquote, again, interpretation. Does he discover the New World or not? Should he be celebrated or not? That's all interpretational, and we're not going to go into interpretation. Not right now. We're not going to. Anyway, do know a couple facts about Christopher Columbus and his impact. Okay, Ferdinand. You should know about Ferdinand and Isabella. They financed Columbus. You should also know, as we talked about in class, that Christopher never goes before Isabella and Ferdinand and says, "Hey, guess what? The Earth is round." You've seen those pictures. He stands there with a globe, and he's explaining to them. That's all myth. It's not true. Most of the people, as we said in class, Copernicus, Kepler, Galileo, all these people had already established that the Earth was round, so we already know that. But he does make the geometric argument that it is true in geometry that the quickest point from A to B is a straight line. So his argument is that, hey, I can get there faster. The biggest thing, or the biggest error that Columbus makes, is that he calculates the circumference of the Earth incorrectly. So he basically states it's smaller than it was. But besides that, he still doesn't know that there's a large landmass that's going to block his route. Now, just think about it. If you look at a map and you remove North and South America completely off, it wasn't there. Columbus, the only thing he would have been, biggest error would have been, was that he miscalculated the circumference of the Earth. I don't know if he would have actually made it to India, even if he had removed North America and South America, and it wasn't there. I think his men might have thrown him overboard before he ever got there, because they were still in fear. Remember, most uneducated people, some of them did believe that the Earth was flat. And being miscalculated and being out there for that long a time, I don't know if he would have had enough supplies to actually make it, since it is as big as it really was. Okay, we want to look at the Columbian Exchange. Consider the question we talked about in class, and again, this is an interpretational thing. Is the Columbus Exchange, should the Columbus Exchange and Columbia be blamed for unintentional bioterrorism? Terrorism. I'm getting tired, guys. So if the concept of what the Columbian Exchange, what do we need to know about the Columbian Exchange? You don't have to remember all of these things. I would pick a few out so that you can mention them. I kind of put a couple, 3, probably the 3 main ones that most people remember, or they're easy to remember. The more you know, I guess, in an essay format would actually be great. That actually come from the New World into the Old World. And remember that, as we pointed out in class, syphilis was the disease, the sexually transmitted disease that's being brought back into the New World. It's a very nasty disease. If you want to look it up, look up what syphilis really is. Okay, and then we have from the old world being sent down into Africa, trinkets, which is nothing but junk, liquor and guns that are being transported and traded for items that are going to be also don't know what it is. Okay, and then from the old world, from Africa, actually being shipped over to the New World. And again, you don't have to know all these, but all these do play a part. Coffee, of course, my favorite. sugarcane, horse, pigs, all these great wonderful things. Okay, but do also note, the diseases, because that does play a major part in this Columbian exchange. The fact that disease is brought into the New World, of which the natives have no their immune system. They are not well. Their immune system is unable to combat. And the biggest thing about this is that when Columbus does arrive, within about 100 years, almost 90% of the Indian native population is wiped out. So again, that concept of bioterrorism. But not only that, but just because of bringing in different animals into the New World that were not there originally, crops that have an effect on the environment, and so you have this whole upheaval that takes place during this exchange. And also note that this actually will end up forming later on, to a larger degree, with this one going further up into the North America region, what becomes known, or later will become known, as the triangular trade, especially when dealing with the slave trade. Okay, we had the Treaty of Tordesillas, and I think I'm going to make a part 1 and a part 2, because I've already been going for about 30 minutes and I need a break. So I'm going to finish this one, and then we're going to take a break, and then I'll do the second half in a little while. Okay, the Treaty of Tordesillas. Okay, basically what we explained in class, you have two Catholic nations, Spain and Portugal, that are competing for the new land. And remember, with Columbus's voyage, and the news comes back, and there's, hey, there's something here. He originally, remember, he does believe that he's landed in the Indies. That's why they're known as Indians. But it is later on, it's not too much longer before they realize that this is a large landmass. And there's just a lot of resources there. So you have two major companies. Now, England is another story, and we'll get to it. We're going to actually cover it in more detail in a whole different class lecture by itself. But so it really get involved, and so will the Dutch and many other people. But for now, the original ones, in the late 1400s, it's really just Spain and Portugal that are competing in the New World. So to keep the Pope Alexander VI, to keep them from actually going to war with one another, like I told you in class, he basically just lays a map out, draws a line down it, says, okay, everything to the west is yours, Spain, everything to the east is yours, Portugal. Okay, here you go. And this became a treaty. The line does change. You have the Papal Division in 1493, and then the treaty line, which plays a bigger part in this, is the Papal Agreement division right here. And then later on, there's an actual treaty line that gets moved just a little bit more. And again, like we talked about, and that's why Brazil, people in Brazil speak Portuguese instead of Spanish. So know that the line of demarcation, known as which actually comes about because of the Treaty of Tordesillas, or actually the two. Okay, I'm going to stop right here. I'll start part 2 right here with Amerigo Vespucci, and so I'm going to put a stop right here. See if I can get this thing to stop so we can take a break.